Yellow Card, I remember I met it. There was like a cute girl in the audience, and we like ended up kind of like making eyes, and then we held hands, and that was it. It was like no words were even exchanged, and I just like we held hands, and I was just like, this is the greatest night of my life.
I was just about to say that must have been the best night of your life up until that point.
It really was.
Oh, well, it's the magic of music, the connection. You don't even have words.
Yeah.
You just held hands.
No number was exchanged.
Yeah.
I've never seen her ever since. I don't, but it was such a beauty. It was, yeah, we had a fun night. We were singing along to everything.
I'm Allison Hagendorf. America, this is the next. Hello, Times Square. Hello, Madison Square Garden. Welcome to X Games Aspen. I'm Allison Hagendorf. I'm the live announcer of the B&E. Welcome to Rock This with Allison Hagendorf.
Yeah, this is Allison Hagendorf.
Hello, my fellow music lovers, and welcome to the Allison Hagendorf Show. Hello, my fellow music lovers, and welcome to the Allison Hagendorf Show. This is where we celebrate the universal love of music and the rock and roll spirit that lives in each of us. I am so glad you're here. We are coming to you from DWP Studios in Los Angeles, and I want to give a shout out to our presenting sponsor, Cloudwater, and our friends at Karma Sauce. These are quality products I love, and they help make this show possible along with you. Your support means the world to me. Thank you. My guest today is Dan Reynolds of the Diamond-certified GRAMMY Award-winning band Imagine Dragons. I have been fortunate to have been part of the band's journey starting when I was a host on Fuse and interviewed the band in Austin, Texas at South by Southwest in 2012. It is wild to think that their debut album, Night Visions, wasn't even out yet, and neither the band or the world knew that Imagine Dragons were about to catapult into pop culture any moment, and they were never going to leave. Fast forward 12 years and the band has put out Loom, their 6th studio album. Dan and I will dive into the details of the new album, the inspiration behind it, the new era of Imagine Dragons, and the personal anecdotes that make Dan, Dan. I am truly looking forward to this one. We'll be right back with Dan Reynolds joining me right here in the studio. One thing about me is that I work hard and play hard, and this functionally fun box from Cloudwater helps me do that. These are my people. Listen to what it says inside. The world would be a better place if fun people lived forever. Yes, I subscribe to this. I feel seen. Inside, we have organic caffeine, we have daily defense, immunity, and CBD, which I imbibe every single afternoon. I think you'll enjoy this. Go to cloudwaterbrands.com, use my code Allison30 for 30% off, and let me know what you think. Cheers. As you know, I care so much about the music community, and I wanted to share a way for artists and content creators to get your videos seen by more people. Advertising.me is one of the leading digital marketing boutique companies. They promoted over 50,000 songs, artists, and creators, and they specialize in YouTube promotions. With algorithms always changing, they are in direct contact with YouTube teams to get ahead of the ever-evolving landscape. They use targeted advertising, curated playlists, and other YouTube strategies to connect your music and content with the right audience based on a deep understanding of your fans. No bots, only real views, fans, engagement, and subscribers. For all artists, any budget, you can unlock YouTube starting at just $100. Go to advertising.me and use my code Allison20 for 20% off your first campaign. My guest today is the lead singer of the Diamond-certified GRAMMY Award-winning band Imagine Dragons. With over 74 million albums and 65 million digital songs sold and over 160 billion streams, they stand out as the only band in history to earn 4 Diamond singles. They just released their 6th studio album, Loom, and have announced their biggest North American headline tour to date, concluding with a historic 4-night run at LA's iconic Hollywood Bowl. I will be there. Dan Reynolds, welcome to the show.
It's good to be here.
It is a joy to see you sitting here.
Thank
and you and I were bonding the other day about how long we've actually known each other.
Right.
And I did find a picture. There it is. This is us.
Babies.
We are babies. This is 2012, South by Southwest, Austin, Texas. And this was prior to the release of your debut album.
Yeah. This is actually, I think, this is when I messed up my vocal cords.
You couldn't speak in this interview.
Yeah, we did, it was like 12 shows in 3 days. And then I hemorrhaged my vocal cords and I had to get surgery after that. And it was right when the album was coming out, so it was scary. I had a polyp, and so I had to go in and have surgery. But ever since then, it's been all good. So yeah, it turned out okay.
It turned out okay, but I'm so grateful that I got to be there even before your initial meteoric ascent. You know, if you think about it, I just was looking at statistics I was telling you about. Just on that album, Radioactive set the all-time record for the longest reign at the top of the Billboard Rock Songs chart, broke the all-time record for longest run on the Billboard Hot 100, and is the best-selling rock song in digital history. And the debut album won awards from the Grammys, AMAs, Teen Choice, World Music, Billboard, and that was just your first album.
It was a really overwhelming time. Very overwhelming.
That's kind of what I wanted to ask you. Like, that's very rare that a band comes out the gate like that and receives that much critical and commercial acclaim. What was that like for you?
You know, I think that I was young, and it was so unexpected. We had been unsigned for 4 years before that, kind of just playing small shows at like the Viper Room.
Yeah.
And the Roxy and Cat Club and in Vegas and Utah, so kind of West Coast. So I was numb. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It was kind of like, okay, now fly to Japan tomorrow. And you're like, oh, wow, okay. Fly to Australia, now go play New York. And we were just seeing all the shows kind of sell out, and then going up to a theater and then going to an arena. It just was, I think now I finally can understand it. But until then, it was kind of being in the eye of the tornado, you know?
Right.
The hurricane, I guess.
You kind of almost go to like an autopilot because you're like, no one could anticipate like how quickly you would find success.
Yeah, I feel like we all kind of had a haze over our eyes.
Yeah.
Like when I would even look at old interviews and stuff, I think all of us were just kind of shell-shocked. Mm-hmm. And people were like, how does it feel? And you're kind of like, it's kind of like, I was just shocked. Yeah. I was in shock. I really was for quite a few years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like now you're here, do you wish you could say something to yourself then?
Yeah, oh yeah. There's a lot of things I wish I could. You know, I think that I wish I could have told myself to, first and foremost, to just take a breath and enjoy it, and not take it all so serious. I think you know, when you're a young artist, everything feels so much. Mm-hmm. You know, when you're an artist, you're already very sensitive, and then you're putting yourself into a position of everything. Yeah. Love, hate, anger, joy, like jealousy, rage, like it's so much that I think I wish I could have just told myself to love myself, maybe. As corny as that sounds.
I love that.
Just kind of have self-love. And I was already so lost with religion, and I was going through a spiritual crisis. So it kind of was just so much at once. I just would have told myself to just take a breath. It's going to be okay. Yeah. I
think that's great advice for all of us.
Yeah.
I mean, that just set the tone. And what's also unique about you guys is that you have continued to keep this momentum, which is also unique to you guys. You know, with each album that you've put out, you've had continued success and continuing to grow and build, you know? And I've been fortunate to sort of be there throughout the path. And when I was the head of Rocket Spotify, there was this infamous meeting that we had that was like, I was around Evolve or Origins, I can't remember, but we had a meeting set for 10:30, and it was like the band, your whole team, the label, Spotify. And I'm a very punctual person. Right. And I lived across the street at the time at the Soho House where the Spotify building was. And my friend calls me, colleague, and he's like, are you coming? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'll be there in exactly 30 minutes, like not a minute before. He's like, that's great, but the meeting was actually right now. I was like panicked. I like quickly sprinted to the meeting. You were all sitting there and you were so gracious. You're like, it's great to see you.
Yeah, I remember that.
It was hilarious.
I was nervous. I was very nervous because that was a real pivotal moment in our career, because we had come off our first record and did gangbusters, and then our second record, Smoke and Mirrors, which is really maybe my favorite of our records. It still did good, but it didn't do as good. Mm-hmm. And so it was that moment where it was like, okay, are we kind of is that it? Are we on our descent now, or what's going to happen? And then Evolve. So there was a lot of pressure on Evolve, you know, and we felt that for sure.
You did,
and I'm sure every artist goes through that to some degree. And your third record you only, you know, if your first record is what blows you up, second record's scary, because then you do it again or you try something new. And we kind of tried something all new and self-produced on our second record, and then third you're just trying, like, where do I go, you know?
Right.
So I remember being nervous, and you were so gracious and And I remember that being a very calming meeting. I remember coming out of it and feeling like, oh, I think we got something here, you know, that felt good. So I have fond memories of that. I don't remember you being late.
Okay,
That's
good.
not what I
Thank
took
you.
away
Thank
from
you.
it. Yeah.
That's, of course, I can't like stop thinking about that because I was so upset. But yeah, you've continued to really be on this path and have continued to evolve as an artist and a songwriter, and bringing us to Loom, your 6th studio album. It truly feels like that it's almost a new era for the band and for you. Is that how it feels like to you?
It does. I'm glad it feels like that to you, because I think that was our goal. We tried to learn from our pitfalls and kind of see the things that we felt we did best and stick to that. And we have a really hard time self-producing and self-editing. Even Mercury, our previous album, very long, right? With Rick Rubin, it was a double album. It was like, I wrote, I think, like 250 for that, and then we narrowed it down to like 30 or something between the two records.
Unbelievable.
It was just so much.
Yeah.
And this record, we were like, we're not going to do that. We liked that we did that. Now let's do something different, and let's also clean up everything and just kind of give something with no fat, 9 songs, right to the point, and be a little more colorful than before. And I think we did that, and I'm really excited to share that. Yeah.
You truly did do that. And it's like you were talking, it's like a learning process, doing the double album, Rick Rubin, you know, and now produced it with the band and with Matt Man and Rubin, who are longtime band collaborators with you guys. There's an intimacy to this album that's very, very special. And the fact that it's 9 songs, like you said, no skips, no filler, it's like your heart, you know, it just, it feels that way. What I love about this album, and you've always done this, I feel like this is signature to you, where you incorporate so many genres and so many vibes and moods and feels. And I think maybe that's part of the reason why Imagine Dragons are so popular, because everyone can relate to something in it because it represents so many different music types.
Right.
But you'll have a song like Kid, which is like this awesome alternative funk pop, kind of reminds me of like Gorillaz a little bit, you know?
I love Gorillaz.
And then like, you know, Gods Don't Pray, with almost like a reggae kind of rock influence. And then of course, Fire in These Hills. I mean, the saxophone sound that comes in like at 20 seconds. This is my favorite album.
Oh, wow.
It is.
That means a lot.
I mean, I could go through track by track, just the things. Did you sort of set out to be so conscious about incorporating so many different sounds, or is that just how you write these days? Does that just come out of you?
From the very beginning of the band, I think my greatest strength and greatest weakness, both, is that I never overthink. I come into the studio and I just want to be excited. It's the little kid in me always comes out, because I started writing when I was 12. And so it's just the 12-year-old Dan that just wants to be excited and create something that sounds fun today. And that was this record. There was no intention of, you know, something sounding like this or that, or recreating this or trying something new. It's just, here we are in the studio, and it always starts with just me, Matt Man Rubin, you guys, just in a room, and here's an idea. And sometimes it's just I'll have a lyric or a melody or a chord progression, and then we'll all start creating it, and then I'll write lyric and melody, and we've just always done it that way.
Wow.
So yeah, there's no real intention of, hey, let's try this today. It's more like, we'll vibe out, right? We'll come in and I'll be like, you know, I heard this song the other day and it really inspired me. Let's listen to this. And so we'll have like maybe a vibe in our head of something. Like there's always an influence, right? So that definitely plays a role, like whatever I'm listening to at the time or being inspired by.
Anything specific you can recall that you were listening to, or?
Yeah. I'm always listening to the Gorillaz, so I think that reference is a good one. I love the 90s, I love early 2000s hip hop, so I listen to a lot of that. But I'm also I'm listening to current things too. Like I love Fred again. I think there's probably some stuff in there. Moby, like I love Moby play. One of my favorite records of all time is the Blue Album by Weezer.
Oh, it's so good.
It's one of those records, again, it's like no skip, no filler, tongue-in-cheek sometimes, sometimes serious with Rivers, and I love that about them. I think that there's something there that is equally, Dragons kind of have that. There's moments where we're kind of having fun and smiling, and then there's moments that are I'm depressed and I'm writing a song about being sad.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, yeah, and the list goes on. I mean, I'm always listening to new things. Right now I'm listening to, I really love Emile and the Sniffers.
Oh my God, what a badass.
So great.
She is a superstar. What a great band.
Yeah, and I love the performing quality and their new song they put out, You Should Not Be Doing This.
I know.
It's so,
It's so
good.
The
and
video's great.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
love that.
I love music, so I always am consuming things, and so whether I know it or not, it's always weaving its way into the music, and I think that gigantic kind of hodgepodge of whatever's coming in is that's the output of Imagine Dragons, you know.
It makes sense because I feel like at this point you guys have really transcended genre. You know, it just feels like great music that sort of is influenced by so many different things.
Yeah. I always hope that our genre is just kind of dragons. You know what I mean? Like when I think of a lot of my favorite acts, they kind of their genre is them. Like, you know, and that's, I think, all we could hope for. That's why when people are like, "What's your genre?" I'm like, I don't put a lot of thought into that.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no label needed. How about great music? How does it make you feel?
Right.
That's the genre it is. However it makes you feel, you know?
I love that. Yeah.
When I listened to the album and I first wrote you immediately, you know, In Your Corner, Don't Forget Me, and Fire in These Hills, just like, I love the whole album, but those three just physically grabbed
Oh, you like the sad song.
I know. What's that saying about me, actually?
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Those three just really grabbed me. And you've always written about like vulnerability and you've always been honest, but just those three in particular, I almost feel like it's next level now.
I think that one of the main things that I really took away from working with Rick Rubin is he would make me go over every lyric with him. And I'd never had a producer do that. I really did not. Like, it was very uncomfortable for me. We sat down with the notebook and he would go through every line and say, "What are you saying here?" And frankly, sometimes when I've always written my own lyrics. No one writes lyric or melody for me. It's a really personal process for me, and I also am shy about, like, one of my biggest weaknesses as an artist, especially in my early days, was being overly metaphoric. Because I was so, when I was writing when I was 12, 13, I was afraid of my mom knowing what I was writing.
Oh,
and she, you know, it's like your family is the ones who are hearing your stuff when you're that age. I didn't want my mom to be like, "Are you questioning Mormonism?" or whatever I was writing about at the time. So that proceeded to be a problem in my early writing, and like even Radioactive, which is, I have no interest really. I'm not a big post-apocalyptic person. It just was about depression. And it was me not wanting to talk about it openly. And so pros and cons to that, whatever, but when I was with Rick, he'd be like, what does that mean? And I'd be like, well, just that felt right for me. And he'd be like, well, as a listener, it feels not right to me. You know what I mean? And so it pushed me to be like, well, a lot of my favorite writers, whether it was like Bob Dylan or Cat Stevens or Paul Simon, there's not like, it's still poetic, but there's meaning to every single thing.
Yes, so intentional.
Yeah, so intentional. So I think with this record, and just throughout the past years, I've tried to be a little more, not on the nose, but a little more vulnerable, honest.
And direct.
Yes, and all three of those songs are very much that. And for better or for worse. And I think that when you do that, people can still, it's still left to be interpretation, to the interpretation of the listener, but you feel it, I think, a little more maybe, you know.
It resonates with me on such a greater depth, you know. That's why I was saying I felt like it was so intimate. I felt like you were speaking to me, sharing with me as a friend, you know, or you were sharing a journal entry. It really felt just the most intimate and most personal, and it's just so beautiful.
Thank you.
Did you have to sort of get into a place to get there, you know, to be so vulnerable and personal? Is it tapping into what's going on in your personal life? Like, how did you kind of get into this headspace?
One of the reasons that I really love working with Mattman and Robin is I've known them now for so long that I feel very comfortable around them.
Yeah.
And the only other people I feel that way with is the band. Right. So when I'm in a room with them or the band, I feel completely fine to be my worst self. Like, completely fine to walk in and have a horrible vibe and write that into a song, and sometimes that turns out to be the best song.
Yeah.
And so I think because of that, I just felt, you know, there were days that I came in, this was a lot changed in my life over the period of writing this record, and so there was a lot of kind of not great days for me.
Yeah.
I'm not great with change. and I was really going through a lot of change. We moved to a new city, out of a over decade-long relationship. There was a lot that I was just kind of processing.
Yeah.
I was processing, and so they held space for that, and I felt completely fine to be vulnerable. And so there's definitely a lot of that on this record, and then there's also songs that are playful and
Right.
fun or angry or, you know. Yeah.
Make you want to dance.
I hope so.
Yes.
Yeah, I think there's more tempo on this record than any
Yeah.
record we've ever done.
It feels that way.
Yeah.
I've been already working out to a lot of the songs. You know what I mean? It's like this album makes you want to work out, makes you want to go for a run, it makes you want to dance, it makes you want to get ready to go out, you know, and then it makes you also want to sit and reflect and be melancholy, you know, and cry if you want to. I just feel like it's a very big emotional release.
I hope so. I really do. I hope that. And we were very intentional in picking the songs and how it flowed. We want, you know, our goal always with our live show and with the record is for someone to just kind of hear life in it. Mm-hmm. Hear moments of weakness, moments of sorrow, anger, remorse, joy, playfulness, just a little bit of just life, right?
Yeah.
And then we try to bring that to the live show, and I think, you know, that's what music always did for me, is made me feel like I had a community or was heard.
Yes.
Or, you know, and that's all that I want. Yeah.
What did making this album teach you about yourself?
It helped me to be more concise, which was really hard. It also helped me to, I think this record is maybe the first record where I felt complete comfortability in my skin. Like I just felt, I don't feel like a young artist feeling like I need to prove myself anymore. And that feels so good. Like releasing that kind of needing to control, trying to control the uncontrollable. And I think as a young artist, you're doing that so often, and then it only ends up hurting you because you can't, like, change is inevitable. And the
Right.
sooner you can accept that, I think the easier it is to exist. And so I think this record, I just learned to completely let go of that. And yeah, and
It's
that
freedom.
feels good. Yeah, freedom.
It's freedom.
Yeah. I don't know if that just age comes with age, or
Yeah.
if it's, you know, experience, or it's just your time. I don't really know. Yeah.
I think that's the freedom in not thinking about an end product,
You're right.
but just being present in that moment and allowing your body and your mind to let go into the music.
Right.
That's where the best music comes from. And you can hear that on this album,
Thank you.
truly. Also, while listening to the new music, you've become a master at melody and little vocal intonations and little sonic nuances that are so signature to you. I'm always just like, how did he do that? Like, where did that come from? Like, how does that work for you, or you get these little sort of melodic ideas?
I really attribute all my melodic sensibility to piano. I played classical piano for 10 years, from 6 to 16. And so that my understanding of melody was from Chopin, Beethoven, Bach. So it was a lot of, you know, that is all pop melody. It's all intervals of 3s and 5s, and it's all harmonious, and, you know, so, you know, I always had piano recitals, and I'd memorize all these classical pieces, and then you play them at recitals. And my mom had read this article that was like, had said that kids do better in math and science when they take piano lessons. So there was no kind of, she was all about academia. So it was an academic approach. It really was not about the art.
The technicality of it.
Yeah, and I think because I did it from such a young age, and it was so much every day practicing, memorizing these pieces from all these classical greats, I think that shaped my melody. And then I also was just obsessed with music and radio. I'd sit by the radio at home. We didn't have cable TV or anything like that, so the radio was my peering into the world. And so I would have a tape recorder, and I'd make mixtapes. I'd put in a tape, and when a song came on that I liked, and I'd listen to like Mix 94.1 in Las Vegas.
Play
I'd
record.
yeah, exactly. Play record. And I'd make these tapes, and then I just kind of had my own mixtapes. And so I was always listening to, it was, Mix 94.1 in Las Vegas was alternative, but that was kind of pop at the time too, because in the 90s it was like, you know, it was like Alanis Morissette, and it was like Sheryl Crow, and it was
Third
like
Eye
all
Blind.
Third Eye Blind,
Yeah.
exactly. All these bands and like badass women that were like doing kind of and then it was also East Coast, West Coast hip hop and
Yes.
Tupac and Biggie and Outkast. It was just
It was
all
the
these
best
things.
time,
Yeah.
the 90s renaissance of music.
So I was, so it was mixtapes, and that's why when people are like, well, what is Imagine Dragons genre? I'm really like a mixtape of,
Right.
you know what I mean? And
course.
it's a lot of different things. I was never listening to an album. I never could buy albums. I never went to a record store. I grew up in a really conservative Mormon house. I never was going to shows. So I
Yeah.
never had albums. I had singles that went to radio. And I think all of that adding up is the pop sensibility. Those are the melodies I want to hear. Right?
Popular. Popular.
Exactly. Yeah. Like pleasing melody
Right.
is what I want. Yeah.
Your upbringing was so unique to you and
Right.
of course made you who you are. You grew up in a musical household, but you also ended up having to use music to find your own identity.
Yeah.
So tell me more about that and using music to navigate your unique circumstances.
When I got into middle school, I was a really happy kid, and then I got into middle school and I became very sad, which I think is typical for a lot of people. I suddenly was, had really bad acne and really bad vision, so I had really thick Coke bottle glasses, and then I had a retainer, and I had braces, and I had the rubber band. I just had everything at once.
Super sexy.
Yeah, it
all
was
at
very
once.
sexy.
Yeah.
And I was playing the saxophone in jazz band, a tenor saxophone, which was bigger than me. I was a small kid. So I just was your typical band nerd kid. And I was also Mormon. So everybody was at school talking about like watching Boy Meets World, and I was like, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
So it's not like
tough.
woe is me, but it was more like I had no identity. I didn't know who I was. I didn't play sports, which a lot of people think I do because I'm like this bigger guy, but I didn't play sports at all. And so all I knew that I loved was music. So in 6th grade, when I was like having trouble making friends and I hated school and I hated going to school, I'd come home and my brother had a microphone and he had this program called Cakewalk on the family computer.
Yes.
And I would just kind of watch over his shoulder, and then when he would leave to go hang out with someone else, I'd sneak it out of the case and I started writing. And then I loved it because I felt a sense of release, and I felt like I could say things that I couldn't get in my journal. For some reason, when there's melody and there was some sort of soundscape, and at the time all I had was like a little keyboard, and so a lot of the melody that I did was with my mouth. Like I was doing synths with my mouth. It was very like Enya and like triple stack vocals, and it was just kind of, did that every day and wrote a song a day for years.
Oh my God.
And I only played it for my dad.
And what was his response?
I think that was a huge thing for me. Is his response was he loved it.
Oh.
And he would also give me critical. He would listen and be like, I didn't love that one. It was kind of made me feel this, or it didn't make me feel anything at all. I really liked that. Like it was very honest. It wasn't always like great job,
right?
Great job, you're the best. It was very like, it was just honest. And so I loved to have that process of sharing something with someone, seeing them receive it, and then shifting how I felt about it, because it's that process of communicating through music that it can feel so magical, and I learned that from a young age. And
that's great parenting, though. I have chills that he was honest with you.
Yes,
because that's constructive.
Exactly.
That's helpful.
Yeah, I would have. Like, a small kid, I think we don't give enough. Like, even if a kid, you think that they want to hear you always say, that's great, that's great. They're smart enough to be like, oh, you said that now every time.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Doesn't
So
have
now it
the
doesn't
weight.
hold weight. Yeah.
Right.
No.
Wow. And at what point did you realize that music was going to be your life? And then it's you started to kind of question, your upbringing.
Anytime I would insinuate to my mom or dad that I wanted to do music, like I told them, hey, I would love to just save up this money and I really want to go to Berklee School of Music, which is where all the other guys went for jazz. And that was a no.
Okay.
It was, all my family went to BYU, which is a Mormon college. And so it wasn't like my parents, would have kicked me out of the house, but it was not. Music, telling your parents you're going to be a musician is kind of like telling your parents you're going to be in the NFL or you're going to win mega bucks. They're like, oh yeah,
That's
oh
nice.
cool, that's
Right.
nice, but keep up on your studies.
Right.
Which is understandable, and as a parent now of 4 kids, like I get it, the sentiment, but I also think your kid's gonna do it, they're gonna do it, and so you're either gonna be there supporting them or not. And then I ended up getting kicked out of BYU, and like so like I did it no matter what.
You had a calling.
Yeah, I just had to do it, and that's why anytime I talk to young musicians, they're like, "What is your best? What's your advice?" I'm always like, "You're gonna do it if you're gonna do it.
Right.
If you have to do it, you'll do it. Otherwise, you're gonna get your heart broken." And
if you're thinking about doing it, then
Right.
don't do it
Exactly.
because you need to feel like this is what I'm doing.
It
I'm
has
doing
to be no matter what. I will be poor for the rest of my life. I will live out of, whatever and off whatever food that I can find because I'm doing what I love. And if you're really at that point, you're gonna do it.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
You've been very vocal and honest about your battle with depression and mental health is important to you. How are you feeling now? Where are you today?
I'm in a really healthy space right now.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but I also am very aware that takes a lot of work, and I've gotten to a point in life where I know the things that I need. I know the things that are triggering to me. I'm a very boundaried person. I have a lot of boundaries, and that's just healthy for me. And I live a really regimented lifestyle. I also, have 2 autoimmune diseases, so I kind of have to physically eat good, exercise, so my body isn't hurting me, and that helps a lot with mental. So it's kind of
It's that 360 approach.
Yeah,
You have to.
You have to hit it on all sides. I'm in therapy every week. There's not a week that goes by that I don't meet with my therapist, and so I really believe in talking about it and opening up about it, because I think I remember being young and looking up to musicians or athletes or actors and thinking, damn, if I could, they just have it all together, and if I could get there, then I won't feel sad. And that's just not true.
Right.
It really is not true. So I think it's important to talk about.
Yeah. Plus, everyone has their struggles. Everyone.
Right.
Everyone is struggling with something,
Yeah.
right? But you mentioned you've AS and
ulcerative
colitis,
yeah.
right? And you're feeling good.
My ulcerative colitis is in remission and has been for many years.
Oh,
My
great.
ankylosing spondylitis, it's just, I think it's my battle for life. It's like it flares up sometimes, and I have no good rhyme or reason for it other than maybe stress
or sleep deprivation.
Yeah. But I can keep it. I have a really good rheumatologist, and I keep up with her. And it's really my diet and exercises. It has to be pretty much perfect.
I'd love to hear more about that actually,
Yeah.
because you look fantastic.
Thank you.
I'm like, one, aesthetic is part of it, but you are an athlete on stage. You are genuine, everyone who's seen you perform, it is like going to see a game. I mean, it is so intense. You're an amazing performer. What do you do? What does your conditioning entail?
4 to 5 days a week, I'll do some sort of weight training always. Some Olympic lifting, so a little bit of cleans and
That's great.
deadlifts or squats or whatever. And then I work out my lower body a lot. I think one of the main things I would recommend to just every person is to work out your lower body more and your hips. I think it's neglected a lot, especially by men who are just chasing this big upper body, and it's then they have weak hips, a weak ass, weak hamstrings, and that's where so much back pain comes from. Weak core.
Yes.
So I do a lot of core work, and then cardio a couple times a week just for my heart, and also to feel light on stage and quick. But a lot of I think diet is maybe the most important. Because I don't do anything that, I work out 1 hour. I'm not in the gym all the time.
Right.
I do an hour. I think consistency first is
yes.
everything. Just being consistent, just going in 4 or 5 times a week. And then as far as a diet, I eat a lot of just complex carbs, fruits, veggies, rice, chicken, salmon, red meat, but I try to eat that on occasion because it's still kind of inflammatory.
Right.
Lamb is non-inflammatory. It's really your traditional non-inflammatory diet.
Yeah.
I just at all costs try to avoid any processed food and sugar outside of fruits. But I still of course will go have a pizza and dessert, and or else you go crazy, and then So I kind of try to follow that. I don't think it's the 80-20 rule. I'd say it's more probably 90-10 or something.
That's intense. I respect that, but you have to in order to feel good. I get that.
I really do. I think at one point I just got so tired of being in pain and having my joints hurt or my head feel foggy that food just it is. I love food. My God, I love food. But I could find enough joy in healthy food and still enjoying it. And then, just finding the right balance for you. Yeah.
Let food be thy medicine.
Yes,
Exactly.
100%. Yeah.
Also, somehow are you a white belt in jiu-jitsu?
A blue belt.
A blue belt, okay.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, thank you.
When do you have time to do this? Because that requires time and focus and discipline.
Yeah, I started a couple years ago, so 2.5 years ago, maybe something like that. And I always enjoyed things that are scary to me or something. I like anytime when I got to a point where stage feels, I don't know if I'm an adrenaline junkie as much as I like to learn.
Yes.
So I started coding like 6 years ago because I was like, man, that seems impossible and scary to me. And interesting, it has to be interesting to me too.
Yeah.
It's not just scary. Jiu-jitsu, I think I wrestled one time with somebody who knew jiu-jitsu, and it was so humbling. I was like, oh, if you don't know this, then you have no chance against anyone ever. And so then I started to just go and kind of face this kind of unknown that seemed scary.
Yeah.
And loved it. And I love logic, and I love logic puzzles. And jiu-jitsu is really a lot of logic, and it's kind of puzzle-based. It's less about being some really strong person, and more about knowing how to shift your weight and faking this and then doing that. And then there's such a community to it too, that I love. And I love the discipline of it.
That's amazing.
It keeps me sober. Anytime I'm like have something that is routine for me, it helps me to be sober. Because for me, I've always found that if I'm like loose here, then I'm like, fuck it. Fuck everything.
Right.
You know what I mean? I kind of have to be over the top.
You have to leave no room.
Yeah, exactly.
I
It's
get
like
that.
when you get to the end of the day and you've worked really hard that day, it's really easy then to be like, well, I don't want to fuck it up with this or drinking or whatever,
Right.
drugs or whatever your vice is.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned that you incorporate boundaries. That's that's something that takes time. That takes a lot of self-care and self-work. Kind of getting to that place where you know what serves you and what doesn't.
Right.
Is there any sort of like boundary in particular or life hack that has worked for you that's sort of been an eye-opener?
It's like letting go of the need to think that you need to manage other people's feelings. I think I'm a Cancer, as much as like you believe in that or not. Just as a person, I'm an empath. I really feed on other people. I hate to hurt other people. I hate to let people down. Part of the reason I stayed in religion so long is I didn't want to let my mom down. I love my mom. I didn't want to break her heart and make her think her son's going to hell and you don't get to be together in heaven. She really believes that. But then it got to a point where I was like, but I really, this isn't working for me. I'm more of a spiritual person, and this wasn't working for me. So just understanding that people are going to be okay for you to say, no thanks. I think there's a lot of beauty in finally understanding that you're not only not serving yourself, you're not serving the other person when you're doing something that you don't want to do. And I spent a lot of my life doing that.
Right.
Telling people, okay, but in my gut, not knowing how to follow my nervous system. My nervous system is saying no, and I'm saying, but that might hurt somebody. Opposed to now I'm like, no, thank you, and that's perfectly fine. It's respecting the other person, not just yourself. Yeah.
I think it comes down to communication, right?
Right.
You're entitled to do what you want to do, but it's about communicating properly, communicating in a way that'll be received.
Yes.
100%. So that's key.
And it makes your relationship so much more meaningful.
Stronger.
Like I feel like my relationships with the people that are in my life are so much stronger because they know when I say yes, it means every part of me yes. Or no, I don't want to do that, or when you're sacrificing something for someone, it feels more valid and real. And there's just more meaning in everything. Yeah, letting go of just being a people pleaser, I guess.
Yeah, that's huge. It seems like you're in a phenomenal place right now, like health-wise, you look great, you're happy, you have this new album. What do you hope, to achieve? I was reading some of the reviews about, this new tour that you're doing. It's your biggest yet, I mean, 4 nights at Hollywood Bowl, amazing. I will be there. What a milestone. I think it was Billboard that referenced U2 with, saying you're kind of going for the U2-esque long game. What a massive compliment,
Cool.
what do you sort of set out to achieve? What would be the end all be all for you?
To be where we are right now, like the first thing I care most about is our live show, always. We put a lot of effort into it being an experience, not just we're playing these songs, but I want people to come and be moved. I want them to walk away feeling a little lighter. You know what I mean? Like, it's like that is my church service. Like, I grew up with thinking that I was going to find that, and I wanted that desperately, that sense of community or relief from life. I think that that's a goal for our shows. Honesty, I'd say above all those, is my most important thing. Like, I want people to know at the end of the day, whether they like it or not, that's not a concern to me anymore. It was when I was young. Now it's just, is it honest? And if it is, everything is okay for me. Like when you're sharing something that's very honest with you, even if you're a sensitive artist, then you have so much. It doesn't matter what anybody else feels about it or something.
Right.
And that's the beauty of art, because you're really supposed to be creating art for yourself. It's a selfish thing. You're creating it because you need this release, or you want to share something, even if it's just you want to share it with someone to see them smile. Still, that's a selfish thing. You're like, oh, wow, that felt so good to see that person smile, right? So it's I think just being honest to me, and that's everything. Yeah.
Wow, that's so powerful, Dan. As a woman with long hair, I have always known that less is more when it comes to washing my hair. I try to only wash it when I absolutely need to, and when I do, I use a low lather shampoo that is sulfate and paraben free so my hair doesn't get dried out. Well, guess what? Men need to know about this too. Modern Mammals was created with men in mind, but of course anyone can use it. My husband Brian discovered these products and he has been loving them. One day in the shower, I spotted a magic mud bottle and I was like, what is this? And Brian explained that it's his new go-to and doesn't dry out his scalp like other shampoos do. Modern Mammals doesn't distort the natural oils in your hair like shampoo does, so it keeps that perfect balance. Brian has an issue with dry skin in general, so this has been so great for him. And he never gets new products, so when I saw this in the shower, I was very proud of him. I was like, look at you, Brian, discovering some self-care options. Go to modernmammals.com and use code TAHS for 10% off. Again, that's modernmammals.com for 10% off with promo code TAHS. Don't forget to use my promo code TAHS so they know that I sent you. You're welcome. I'd love for us to quickly do some deep cuts for just some quick questions.
Sure.
Name a song, album, or artist that changed your life.
I'd say Paul Simon's Graceland is one of my all-time favorite records, and it just makes me so happy when I turn that record on. Always, I never get tired of it. No.
I listen to Paul Simon pretty much daily with my kids.
Yeah.
It's just a great.
Me too.
It is great for the family.
Yes.
It's really good.
It's actually an ongoing joke in my family now, where the kids will just be like, "Dad, are you gonna play? It's gonna be Graceland."
Yeah.
Like, yeah, but they're not tired of it yet, or they fake like they are. I'm sure
they'll love you for it. Even when they get older, they'll appreciate it more. You know.
Yeah.
What was the first concert that moved you, especially since you didn't see live music growing up?
I did actually go to one concert. And after that, it was Imagine Dragons was my first concert, and first festival I ever went to was Imagine Dragons. I did go to one concert.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my God.
And it was Yellow Card.
Oh, okay, great.
At the House of Blues in Las Vegas. I'm sorry, two concerts. I went to see Yellow Card, House of Blues, and I loved it. It was fantastic. They put on a great show. That was in I want to say 8th grade, and then in 10th grade I went with a couple of my brothers to see G Love and Special Sauce.
Oh, that's incredible.
Also the House Blues in Las Vegas. Both great shows. Both had a lot of influence on me in different ways. And yeah, those I'll never forget those shows. But those are the only two shows I ever went to. Yellow Card, I remember I met it. There was like a cute girl in the audience, and we like ended up kind of like making eyes, and then we held hands, and that was it. It was like no words were even exchanged, and I just like. We held hands, and I was just like, this is the greatest night of my life.
I was just about to say that must have been the best night of your life up until that point.
It really was.
Oh, well, it's the magic of music, the connection. You don't even have words.
Yeah.
You just held hands.
No number was exchanged.
Yeah.
I've never seen her ever since. I don't, but it was such a
That's
it was,
beautiful.
yeah, we had a fun night. We were singing along to everything.
See,
Oh, the ocean never
of course,
knew.
so good.
Yeah.
Ah, what a time that was. That was a
Yeah,
blast.
it was.
What is a song you wish you wrote?
Imagine by John Lennon, I think, is
Yeah.
just one of the best. It lyrically, melodically, it's kind of like a perfect song.
It is.
I'll go with that.
Yeah, that's sort of the best answer,
Yeah.
of course. What is something your fans would be surprised to learn about you?
It's a really great question. I don't know. I really don't. I think our fans know a lot about me, and I'm such an introverted person. Maybe that. I think because I am such a expressive person on stage, I'm not an extrovert. So when I get off stage, my battery just feels like woof.
Right.
And that kind of takes everything out of me. But I love that because it's my place to go. I feel completely free on stage. I've never felt nervous on stage. Never. Not once. I remember the
Wow.
first time we were on stage in front of like 20, 30,000 people. I was not an ounce. It felt the exact same to me as when we played 100 people. I'm never nervous, but because I feel so free. But I am certainly not an extrovert. If I walk into a party or something, it's like I'll have 2 conversations and then I'm like, I need to go to the bathroom. I'll like go in the bathroom, shut the door, and just be like, oh my God. Like, oh. Yeah.
Wow, that is interesting. You're
Yeah.
such a natural on stage. You were meant to be there. You were meant to be there. If you could meet any celebrity, dead or alive, who would it be?
Probably Harry Nelson.
Oh.
I love Harry Nelson, and I've consumed so much of his stuff and the way he passed, it really broke my heart. And I think that there's a lot that I relate to with him. And like I watched his documentary, and it was like so moving to me. I think probably Harry Nelson. Yeah.
I totally get that. Such an icon, really.
Yeah, and so much heart, and he just, I would like to sit down and have a conversation with Harry. Yeah.
So much emotion.
Yes,
very
and you
emotive.
feel it in
You do.
everything. Yeah.
Well, I see the connection here. Seriously. What's the greatest risk you've ever taken?
Having a kid, probably. You know, it's like it changes your whole life.
Yeah.
It changes my perspective on everything. Like my heart every day is, I live in fear of my kid being hurt or in any way, and not just physically, emotionally, socially. I think I didn't have enough self-love to understand that fear growing up. I think now I understand that. Like I take my life feels meaningful to me and I love myself, but I didn't have that growing up. And I think having a child made me be like, whew, I love this in a way that hurts so much.
Yeah.
I just fear of anything happening to them. And I always remember my mom I was like, why are you so worried? And I'm just like, God, I'm my mom 2.0. Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
When you have children, your heart is now outside your body.
100%.
Right?
Every
Isn't
day I
that-
feel like
so
I'm just going to throw up at
Yeah.
any moment, when the school calls or something. I'm like, what's this?
Right.
Yeah.
I know. It's a love that cannot be described until you actually
really is.
feel it. It's
Yeah.
wild. What's a fear or insecurity you'd like to overcome?
A fear or insecurity I'd like to overcome. I feel like I've really faced a lot of my deepest fears over the last decade. My deepest fear was not being liked. I really felt, because of how I don't know if it's who I was or what, but I was so afraid of someone not liking me, or not liking my music, or not liking, all of that was so scary to me, and I faced that, and I don't feel that anymore. I think it's why, like I was saying, like I try to find things that I'm afraid of and try it.
Yeah.
Competing in the jiu-jitsu tournaments that was scary for me. Like you're fighting with someone and
Right.
you're both trying to break each other's arm, and that
Right.
was scary. And then once you do it, you're like, oh, it wasn't that scary. So, I'm sure there's a million things. I just would have to think about it.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer that jumps to mind that I'm like, this is. Once I think of it, I'm
Yeah.
going to try to do it, and face
I
it.
love that though.
Yeah.
Like you said, like you like to learn, and learning is empowering. It does. It's
I
so
love
great
to
for you.
learn. I love to fail. I love the idea of I don't love how it feels, but I'm old enough now that I know, hey, well, if I just put in some time,
Yeah.
If I just go take a course on coding, I'll learn it a little bit, and a little more the next year and the next year, and like I love that part of life. I wish I could live forever in a library and just read and read and learn, and I love to learn. Yeah.
Dan, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing as much of you through your music and just through you. I'm glad that you're here. It really means a lot, and I'm so inspired by you.
Well, thank you.
And I'm so happy for you. So happy for you. You sound like you're in a really great place.
Thank you. And thanks for supporting us for over a decade. It's pretty wild. It's crazy, crazy how long this has been, and the places the band has been. I just never could have imagined we would be here. And it's really because people believed in us. So I really appreciate it. I don't forget that. It means a lot. Yeah.
Well, you deserve it all.
Thank you.
No, thank you. We'll be right back. What an absolute delight it was sitting with Dan. This is why I do the show. It means so much to me. I feel honored that I have gotten to be with the band through their journey over the years, all to the culmination for this album, which I love so much, and the guys deserve all of their success. It just really warms my heart. Thank you so much for being part of the Allison Hagendorf Show presented by Cloudwater. A huge thank you to our other partners as well, Danny Wimmer Presents and Karma Sauce. Thank you, Tribute Project, for making me this custom vest. Thank you to our friends at Arctic Zone, and most importantly, thank you. I would love to hear from you, so please like, comment, rate, review, whatever you're feeling, and reach out to me on socials at Allie Hagendorf. I would love to connect with you. Let me know who I should interview next and what made you smile today. Thanks again. I'll see you next time, and remember, you're a rock star.